to you by Vodafone. Well, the controversy surrounding the removal of Harun Idrisu and Muntaka Mubarak as minority leaders and the minority chief whip, respectively, is raging on. Tonight, we're learning that a petition has now been filed. At least 60 NDC MPs has filed that petition asking that the party consults even more broadly. And a strict opposition is also being mounted now by that group that believe that Harun Idrisu should be maintained in that position until consultations proves otherwise. There's a counter petition we're also learning about tonight from another group of NDC MPs who believe there's nothing wrong with the decision that was taken by the party. We'll get into that pretty shortly. I want to bring in parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante, who has been following this for us. Kweku, tell us about this petition.
So this petition, Evans, is signed by some very senior members of the NDC caucus in Parliament. It includes Dr. Kwabena Donkor, Dr. Dominic Ayine, Eric Opoku, Sam George, Sam Sinahi, Ibrahim Musa Mohammed. The name is not exact. About 60 NDC MPs, after the last count, had signed, and more were willing to sign, which was going to send the number to about 65 or 70 thereof, about half of all NDC MPs in Parliament. It states some specific grounds that it uses as basis to write this petition. It says that we, the undersigned NDC members of Parliament, have taken note of a letter signed by our party General Secretary, Equity, dated 23rd January, and addressed to the Speaker of Parliament. With all due respect to the leadership of our party at all levels, we wish to request that they patiently broaden and deepen consultations on the subject again, because we have doubts about how thorough the process was. We are concerned that this critical decision didn't seem to have taken into consideration the unity of purpose and focus our caucus requires to deal with. And Evans, they actually end this petition with a veiled threat. They say that we respectfully request that to extend all levels of leadership of the party, including Parliament. Until then, without disregarding the letter signed by the General Secretary of our party and without malice towards our colleagues proposed as new leaders, we, the undersigned NDC MPs, have resolved to stand by our current leadership, that is the group led by Harun Idrisu, until the process of consultation is satisfactory to all concerned. So this 60 MPs clearly makes the case that they want some more consultation to be taken, and until that is done, they will not recognize Dr. Kisela Soforsen, Gaben Kwame Agoja, Emmanuel Amakufibua, who have now been proposed as new leadership of the caucus. And like I said, this statement is signed by some very key and senior MPs on the minority side: Alhassan Suhini, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, Dominic Ayine, Ernest Nogbe, Eric Opoku, Sam George, Sam Sinahi, Edward Bauer, ABA Husseini, Pauline Zauda, Edwin Ilante van der Poel, Isaac Adongo, who is touted by NDC General Secretary, NDC Chairman, as the one to take over from Atuforsen as Chairman of the Finance Committee, is also signing to this petition. There is Teddy Safori Adi, Clement Apak, Godfrey Shedu, Francis Sosu, and the list goes on and on. Very key persons, 60 so far, having appended their signatures to this petition.
And they make it categorical that they are standing by the current leadership until the process of consultation is satisfactory to all concerned, which means as far as this 60 is concerned, Harun Idrisu is still the minority leader and Muntaka Mubarak is still the minority chief whip.
Indeed, that is the position that has been taken by these 60 MPs. As of now, I'm just getting a message that a number of NDC MPs have also signed on to this, so the numbers are increasing. So it is instructive to say that tomorrow the caucus are going to meet. Our understanding is that the meeting is being triggered by the new leadership with some consensus from the old leadership for the party to meet in Parliament together with the party leadership to try and judge ways to resolve this. But clearly, these 60 MPs say that until what they deem satisfactory consultations are done, they will not recognize Dr. Soforsen as the minority leader. They will continuously recognize Harun Idrisu, Alhaji Muntaka Mubarak, and James Kluchi Abedi as the leader of their caucus, and the so-called appointments that have been made and sent to the Speaker will not hold until then.
And here's the thing that makes this even more complicated, because just before I came on air, I learned that there is another separate petition by another group of minority MPs who, on the back of this petition we're talking about, also felt they also need to send another petition. It's a counter petition to this one, saying that they will also stand with Dr. Kaisel Atefosing, with Amakufi Boa, and with Kwame Govins Agboja, the incoming new leaders. Indeed,
Evans, that is so. I'm yet to get the list of the signatures of this new petition, but we understand, just like yesterday, we were able to intercept, there is some level of fireworks on the NDC MPs platform, with both sides, now the division in the party in Parliament, with a sizable number supporting the new leadership led by Dr. Kaisel Atefosing, and another group led by people like ABF Husseini, Isaac Adongo, and the like, who also say that the party will reconsider this decision. And so this new petition is running counter to what these 60 MPs are demanding. And tomorrow, when the party meets its caucus in Parliament, both sides are expected to make representations as to why they think their viewpoints must be taken by the party. And the party, as we understand now, is taken by the decision to name Atefosing as new leader. But this new group, which you know is in the 40s now, gathering more signatures, say that let's come into the caucus as Parliament is set to resume. Let's rally behind our new leadership and let us not do anything that would deepen the tie that exists in the caucus now.
Could you stay with me, because I've been speaking to Sam George, the Member of Parliament for the constituency in the Greater Accra region, on this just before I came on air, and he was very emphatic that what they are looking for is greater engagement with the minority side, because if that does not happen, then he believes that the party is setting up the new crop of leaders to fail, because they will then not have the legitimacy they need to lead them into a very important election next year. This is Sam George, Ningo Prom MP.
I would say that both sides of the caucus, whichever side you find yourself on or whichever petition you're signing, agree on one fundamental issue, that Parliament, as a wing of the party, should get a lot more consultation and be involved more in the decision-making that affects us as a caucus or as a wing. Because you look at other wings of the party, the women's wing and the youth wing, they don't go through the kind of rigors of becoming a member of Parliament that we go through. Yet they, as wings of the party, are allowed to choose their leadership. We, as members of Parliament, also believe that, and like I said, whichever side of the divide you fall, believe that there must be consultation on a certain level with members of Parliament, whether it is the entire caucus, whether it is extended leadership. Some kind of consultation has to happen. Those who seem to speak, and I don't know which one to call for or against, or in support of or against the decision, let me start with that, have a problem with the timing. They have a problem with what appears to be a lack of extensive consultation. And that is the operational where there is extensive consultation and a lack of a sense that the timing itself wasn't the best. Those are all legitimate claims, and whichever side of the divide you sit on, they're legitimate claims to be made. That could we have watched the timing better? Evans is calling me this evening to speak to him about leadership reshuffle in the NDC when Ghanaians are reeling under a debt exchange program that we do not have there or know the head and tail of. When Ghanaians have been slapped in the face in the last 48 hours with gargantuan stealing that had been occasioned in expenditure by the state from our COVID funds. And don't forget that this audit was not because the government decided to be transparent, but because the IMF insisted as one of the conditions for a program that they had to do an audit. Left to the government on its own, it would never have done an audit. Don't forget the minority had asked for audits earlier, they didn't do. These are more critical issues that touch on bread and butter for the Ghanaian people. But we're here discussing a leadership reshuffle. Maybe we could have looked at the timing better. But all in all, I believe that the call that is being made is for the party leadership, be it the Council of Elders, be it the National Executive Committee. And don't forget, our constitution is clear. The highest decision-making body of our party is actually Congress. After Congress, you have the National Executive Council, and then after that, you have the Functional Executive Council or Committee, whichever way you look at it. And the point is, the question is being asked, which of these bodies took the decision? And those are legitimate issues that MPs are asking, and those are issues that I believe that it's important as a political party that we begin to sit down and jaw and have a conversation.
As far as the two petitions go, where do you stand? Are you for the new appointments or against the appointments?
I am for better engagement.
Okay.
I am for better engagement.
And to be clear, is that to suggest that you'd have nothing against the new crop of leaders who have been put forward?
That's the point I've made, that none of us, and I don't even think that any of our leaders, as it stands now, the Haruna-led, have anything in principle against any of our colleagues. I mean, any of the 137 could be leader at any point in time. And so I don't think that in principle, any of them, be it Muntaka or Aveji or Haruna, have a problem with you saying we think someone else should lead, or their supporters or followers. And I have been accused severally of being a Haruna boy or a Muntaka boy. And I wear that with pride. Because I mean, they were my leaders. And so I have no problem whatsoever with it. But the bottom line here is this. Nobody, and that's what I'm saying, nobody has raised any question of capacity or any question of ability to lead on the new appointment. And that's what I'm saying. Where you see a problem or a deviation between the for or against is engagement and timing.
So I see the questions around process.
And timing is different from capacity.
But if you say you are for better engagement,
yes,
a better consultation on the subject, consultations presumes that what has been proposed could change. But if you're not opposed to the suggested new names, then what's the point of the consultation then, if you're not opposed to what has been proposed?
You see, what engagement does, and I'm being very careful. I'm being careful not to use consultation and engagement interchangeably, because they're two different things. They're two different things, technically speaking. I repeat that I'm for engagement. And what engagement does is that engagement carries everyone along. Engagement carries the caucus along with the decision that is made. So I have heard Adabraka say we have consulted. And they've listed people they have consulted. That's fine. But you need to engage those who will be led. And that has been the norm.
And the purpose of the engagement will be to get you along, but it's not to change the proposed names.
No, so in previous instances where there have been engagement, it's not as though there have not been counter proposals to names in those engagements. But what those engagements do is that they bring about a consensus position that allows for the caucus to unite and say, okay, I had a different opinion. I was given an opportunity to be heard. And my opinion was taken on board. But the majority decision says we should go ABC. And so even though I may not have supported what is the final position, I was part of the process. That is the legitimacy you want to give to a leader of a caucus. Because that legitimacy gives him the authority that is needed to lead MPs. If MPs feel like they were not part of the engagement, what you then begin to do is to sow seeds of discord and draw parallel lines of authority within a caucus.
Considering that the party has already written to the speaker informing him about the change, isn't it too late now for the engagement to happen? But he is the final authority of Parliament.
The speaker doesn't decide what happens in our caucus. Let's be clear. The MPP is also going to have a meeting when President Akufo-Addo returns later this week to change their leadership. We know there will be changes in their leadership.
And you know this how? You know this how?
Oh, well, by next week you call me and ask me how I got to find out. Maybe I'll tell you. But it tells you that the government is naked. But that's a different conversation. The point I'm making here is this: when the MPP makes their decision, they would also communicate same to the speaker. Does it mean the speaker is the one taking the authority? The speaker is presides over the house. So it comes to matters of the caucus. The speaker is not an authority on who is our leader or not.
So they're saying Ketia, Fifi Kwete and Cole's names that we saw yesterday. For you, it's not final.
As it stands, the party is governed from Adabraka, is led by the national chairman, Asedu Nketia, and the general secretary, Fifi Kwete. As a party boy, I will call myself. When my national chairman and general secretary write a communication and they confirm that it is from them, it is a final decision. But that's what I'm saying, that decisions of the party are subject to change when there are engagements. I have sat as a regional rep at NEC, where decisions have been brought to NEC for approval. And NEC has made alterations to those decisions. Through those engagements. At times, it is not a change of the decision, but an alteration of the decision.
Sam George,
we are calling for.
Do you want a reversal of the decision?
I want engagement. I've been very clear on that, Evans.
Yes.
I want
engagement that leads to.
Happen. You see, Evans, I have spent too long in the NDC to want to come and discuss deep or internal party issues on radio. We find ourselves where we are. As to what my position will be and the defense of my position, respectfully, Evans, neither you nor your listeners have the capacity to make any decision on whatever my...
And it's important to point out that Fifi Kwete says that John Mahama was consulted, so he knew and possibly gave his blessing to it. That is a big game changer, as you know.
John Mahama is a stakeholder in our party. He's our only living former president. And that's why I said, you see, now you bring me to the point I was making, the difference between engagement and consultation. So consultations went on with certain stakeholders in the party. If I listen to Fifi Kwete, our general secretary, he very, very intelligently decided not to state on record what John Mahama's position was. Because again, John Mahama should not and cannot be drawn into this conversation.
So that's Sam George, the Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram. So will the party executives, the General Secretary, John Sassoon Nkiti, the National Chairman, will they budge in the face of this petition that has gone in from what we understand tonight? About 60 NDC MPs have signed on to this particular petition. Will they budge? As you heard Sam George explain, they want an engagement on the decision that had been made. But listen to Fifi Kwete, who spoke on the Super Morning Show today. He says, well, an engagement, consultation, call it what you may, it's not a prerequisite in the appointment of the leadership of the minority side, and it's never been.
Concerns have been raised. We listen to those concerns. It's important to appreciate that this is not the first time such a thing has been done. And I do not think any of them has cited any instance of things having been done in the past that were different from what has been done. When you're talking about people making a push, it's different from talking about minority caucus being consulted. Decisions have always been taken by the leadership of the party. And that's exactly what happened. The leadership of the party at the apex level consulted and the decision has been taken. And that's what has happened historically. I do not recall any changes having happened at the leadership, whether it's a change from Babin to Avoka or the change from Avoka to Kumbo at the time we were in power. That ever became subjected to majority caucus at the time or to our parliamentary caucus. No, that's never happened.
I want to bring another member of parliament who belongs to the minority side in the House. He's the MP for South Dye constituency, Roxing Nelson Dafiamekbo. Roxing, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thank you very much, and good evening to your listeners.
So, which of the petitions have you signed?
Is there a petition?
Well, from what some judge says, there are two petitions. He's signed the one that says pause and engage. Which one have you signed?
I am here to cite a petition. But let me say that what my colleague members of parliament are asking for is a further engagement on the matter. And let the record be such that consultation is not co-terminus to permission. If you are to be consulted on a matter, it is not for your permission to be sought. And so, as a member of parliament from January 2017, what I witnessed is what I will speak to. When the leadership in question, when they were determined by the party from Adabraka, we were only called into a meeting and informed. And they were introduced to us. And that was it. Nobody called me to ask of my opinion or my buy-in or to even vote. And that is what our constitution says, that the leadership of the parliamentary organ of the party is determined by the party. So we must place the matter in the proper perspective. I think the problem from my colleagues or from colleagues is that before our meeting for the new leadership to be introduced to us, a letter has been sent to Speaker. And the communication to Speaker is also regular because Speaker must be informed. And that is what, again, the Constitution says. The Speaker, Parliament must be informed. And to inform Parliament, it is Speaker that you must communicate to. So there is no problem with the communication. I think the problem with the communication, as I understand from my colleagues, is the sequence, the introduction to members of the new leadership before the communication to Speaker. But I can understand why that is so, because we are on recess. Everybody, and you are aware that our primaries there's a timetable for our primaries which is in May. So every single member is busy in their respective constituency. So I thought that the party in its wisdom decided to communicate to Speaker before calling for a meeting to introduce members. I
understand
from
what I understand, there's a minority caucus meeting tomorrow, correct?
Yes, we have a caucus meeting tomorrow, and I want to call for a cooler head. All of us should be calm. I will urge Adabraka to also attend the meeting tomorrow, so we can re-engage on this matter and reorient, and then we move forward.
Yeah, when you say re-engage, and that's a question that keeps coming up. Re-engage, because there's an air of finality around the announcement that we saw in the communication to the Speaker. Is there a suggestion that there are some who wants this changed?
You see, the party has the power to determine leadership. And the party actually determined this leadership. In January 2021, after the 2020 general elections, when leadership of the caucus was reconstituted, what the party did was to retain each and every member in his or her position. So we were only informed. So as for the determination of the leadership of Parliament, it has always come from Adabraka. So I am saying that the party should engage the caucus and recommit to itself that yes, a decision has been made. Perhaps the meeting to introduce the new executives to us, the new leadership to us, didn't happen before the communication filtered into the public space. That is an error that I think anybody can concede, and then we move forward. And I don't think that the minority leader that I have served under the Honorable Harry Pisu, is saying that he should be reinstated. That is not what he's saying.
But there are some leaders like Avoka who says that the decision must be reversed, and he's a former.
Sorry?
Leader. There are some key members of your caucus who have said that the decision should be reversed, like Cletus Avoka.
The reversal or confirmation of that decision again rests with Adabraka. And I'm saying that if a meeting is held and we all attend, then the party reiterates its position. All of us will align. And the most important thing is that we have a crop of leaders who are also our own colleagues, like we have had before, that we are willing to support to deliver on their mandate. I don't think that we should split hairs over this matter. Perhaps what I will be calling for is a reform of how our leadership in Parliament is chosen. I'll ask for that reform because it appears that suddenly when the same formula is followed, people have issues with it.
I guess
so
you're suggesting reform to make it more democratic, more consultative.
It is still democratic. Don't get it wrong. That choosing people is not democratic. It is still democratic.
So what specific reform are you asking for them, very briefly?
For instance, as to whether members will have the right to actually vote on the leadership in Parliament. Now we don't vote. It is by appointment. The party appoints and informs Parliament. That's all.
Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo, thank you very much. Newsnight in a minute.